Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of Welcome to Scary Town. It's a Goosebumps review series going from the very first book to as long as I can continue doing this. Um, the first book, Welcome to the Dead House, is when you first look at the cover, it just shows this kind of spooky house. And my first reaction was, I assumed it was going to be like a haunted house kind of story, where it would be kind of like Amityville horror or the Haunting or that kind of thing. The story does deal with ghosts, but the house really serves more as a plot device than anything really important happening into the house. It's more about the town itself and the people. So the story starts out. This family moves into the town called Dark Falls, which immediately raises a red flag. What kind of place is called Dark Falls, and why would you want to move there? That doesn't sound like a welcoming place. Looking at my notes here, the Benson family was a mom and dad, and their kids, Amanda and Josh, and they have a little dog, Petey. This kind of important character, but we'll get to that later. So they move in. They talk to the retail agent, who is Compton Dolls. And immediately you know something's wrong because the dog Petey starts kind of barking at Dolls and is very nervous, and it's kind of an old myth or something where they say dogs can sense evil, and obviously something's wrong here. Also, they notice that the street, they don't see a lot of people around, and it kind of looks dead. So that kind of makes sense. But so they get settled in. Josh is I believe he's the younger brother. He's kind of a little twerp. He's very annoying in the sense that he didn't want to move here because he misses his friends from stuff from the old town he was in, and he doesn't like the house. Like, he just senses something wrong. But it's Amanda that she looks up in the house and she sees a little girl's face or something. And it doesn't get touched on later, but you come to realize that there's ghosts in the house, and actually all the town. That's pretty much what's going on. Is the whole town, they're all ghosts, in the sense that they still have solid forms, I guess, and they basically what happens is in order to survive, they need to consume the blood of the living. They bring in a family into this house. They within first couple of weeks, then they feed on them, and they only need to do this like once a year. It's very odd. The requirements of this is very strange. And so that's what's happening. That's the plot of it. They're blood-sucking ghosts. So it's, you come in looking at the cover and you're thinking, oh, this is a haunted house story, and it's completely not. It still involves ghosts, but it's different. And the ghosts, most of them are just like little kids, and you find that all the kids were they moved into this house, and then everyone lived in that house, and they're all dead, and it's some of it doesn't make a lot of sense when you really think about it, because their main weakness is light, like in, even artificial light from a flashlight or you know sunlight off of it, obviously. So it's, I mean, anybody that's lived there, you know, within maybe like the first day or two would figure out something's very strange. Like, they don't go into the depth of like uh, the family going to the grocery store during the day and not seeing anybody. So once they move in, Amanda starts seeing and hearing things that sound like a ghost in the house, and she starts noticing things that are kind of strange, and it's kind of like an echo of what has happened to the last family, and it's kind of warning her that something's very wrong going on. And they meet the kids, and in the playground everything's fine, and then they have like this confrontation where all of a sudden, like, the kids were kind of friendly to him at first, and then they create like a circle around Amanda and Josh, and they start closing in on them and like looking very serious and very menacing. And then all of a sudden, uh, Compton Dolls comes in and kind of saves the day, and then kind of breaks everything up. But you know, things were escalating, so it's like they were very keen on just attacking the kids. And this is all going according to plan. Like, the whole town's in on uh, this thing, but it's very organized. They want this to happen at a certain time. You know, this it's strange how organized this is, because you would think, like, if they really only need their blood, they could just like attack them like within the first day. Oh, it doesn't make a lot of sense why they need to draw this whole thing out into basically like they attacked them within 2 weeks. So it doesn't make a lot of sense why they need to do that. But apparently, it doesn't go in specifically how long they've been doing this, but apparently this has been going on for like a very long time. So I guess they don't want to stray from what's been working. And so after the playground incident, like, the kids are trying to tell the parents, you know, obviously something's going wrong. And then also, what happens, the dog Petey, he runs away. And then for a couple chapters, the kids are trying to find the dog, and they have no idea where he is. It's Josh who remembers when they first got there that the dog ran off, and the place they found him was in the cemetery. And then so he remembers, like, hey, let's go check the cemetery. That's like the only place we haven't checked. And they go, and then they look for a while, but then while they're looking around the cemetery, they look at the tombstones, and they see names of the kids that they been talking to, and they all realize, like, oh my god, like, the kids are all dead. And then eventually they find Compton Dolls' name, and he's also dead. And it's like, oh, and then this kid that's been helping them, he kind of befriended them, Ray. He was like a nice kid. He was probably one of like the first ones to kind of befriend the kids, and he once they realize where they're gonna go to the cemetery, and then all of a sudden Ray shows up and says like, "You guys shouldn't go to the cemetery. You know, it's dangerous to go out there by yourselves," and then he starts getting like very nervous, and um, he kind of pounds on them with this fact, is like, you know, there, you guys shouldn't go there. You know, there's something going on that you're not supposed to know about, and I'm supposed. And then he kind of blurts out that I'm supposed to keep you from going to the cemetery, because, you know, it's too soon for you to know uh, what's going on, and he's basically trying to keep them from learning that all the kids are dead and all that kind of stuff, and so once they go to they find the names on the tombstones. They actually find their dog Petey, like the dog's back's turned to him, and he looks different, because like once he turns around, like his eyes are like red, and he's a ghost. He's a ghost dog, which is interesting because there's another book in the series called like I don't know, Ghost Dog or something like that, and it is presumed that the dog, the ghost dog, is actually Petey. It's not official, but it kind of makes sense. And so Petey's dead, and this is like horrible. And then Ray says, you know, the dogs are always, or the pets, I'm assuming like maybe cats as well, they're the ones that always have to go first. We have to kill them because they were gonna, because they can sense evil and they know something's going on, and that alerts the people, and can't have that, so we killed your dog and now he's a ghost. It's pretty horrible. That's like, this is a kid's book, but killing dogs is pretty horrible, so it's kind of messed up when you think about it. I mean, these books are like supposed to be like, you know, scary but not too scary, nothing too horrible happens, but this is pretty bad. And then the second thing that's really awful is Ray is like, you know, like, hey, you know, I'm supposed to stop you from you know, finding out all this, and he kind of like attacks them, and then grabs Amanda, and then Josh, he's been carrying around this big flashlight, like one of those big silver flashlights you can like beat someone over the head with. He accidentally shines the light into Ray's face, and then his face just starts like melting. His skin just starts peeling off like oatmeal, like dripping down. It's like ugh, and he's like, oh, he's like terrified, and then he's like, his body just like melts away and into like ash, and he's just dust. It just blows away in the wind. This is horrifying. His face just melts. This is a children's story, and you see a kid, you read about a kid's face melting off, and it's crazy. It's hilarious, but it's like, what's going on here? And so like Ray's gone with the wind, and they immediately rush back to their house to just kind of regroup, and they're looking for their parents to just kind of tell them like what's going on, you know. And then I think it's Amanda remembers they were going out to a party with some of the other neighbors, and they're like, oh, it's kind of late for them to be still out. They should have came back. And they're like, and then it kind of dawns on them, and like, oh my god, like, you know, they kidnapped our parents, you know. They're already coming in on their plan to suck their blood. And then all of a sudden, like, some of the the kids from the neighborhood are in their house, and they're just kind of like talking to them, like just kind of like messing with them, saying like, they're like, we all lived in your house, and then someone else says like, oh, I also lived in your house, and then we're like, we all lived in your house, and there's like, we lived in your house, and now we're dead in your house. Welcome to Dead House. And it's really stupid, and they're all like, I guess they thought this was really funny because they all started laughing at their own joke, and it just like alerts them, and then it's kind of like they're about to like close in on Amanda and Josh, but then Dolls comes in and then kind of like breaks things up again. I don't know why, but whatever. And then kind of creates a diversion, and the kids run off. Actually, I think at this point I messed up, where I don't think they realize Dolls is actually in on it yet. And that's why it seems like he's the good guy, as he's helped them. This is the second time he's broken up the dead kids from attacking them. So they think he's on their side. So he takes them in his car, and they drive off, and they're thinking he's gonna help them find their parents, but he drives them back to the cemetery, and they basically run off and escape from him somehow. And then they find out there's this amphitheater like right next to the cemetery, which is kind of unusual because who would normally put a open theater right next to a cemetery? You know, that you think that would raise some red flags as well. If you're new to the town, you're like, why is this here? Seems kind of odd. But all the townspeople are like gathered in the theater, and they see that their parents have been tied up, and they're gonna be, you know, sacrificed, and they're gonna drink their blood and all that fun stuff. And they notice that there's this old tree that's just kind of like hanging off its roots, and like we were like, hey, why don't we just, because the tree is like huge and it's covering up, the sun's slowly coming up, and this is providing a shade around the theater. So they're like, maybe if we can just push the tree, because Josh had this idea, it's like, why don't we just push the tree, and then the shade will be gone, and then they'll hit by sunlight, and it's like blah, start burning up. And it seemed very unlikely that these kids could push over this giant tree, even though it was uprooted. It seems kind of silly because at first it's like nearing the end of the chapter, and there's like, oh, they like rush towards, and then they start pushing it with all their might, and so it seemed kind of very strange that these kids would be able to push out this old tree all by themselves. Kind of implausible, but I mean, taking into consideration that it's been uprooted a little bit, and you know, you kind of have to just run with it. So they go for like this one big push. They're like, we're gonna run full steam. We're gonna hit this tree. I'm gonna push it down, and it's nearing the end of the chapter. And they push it, and at the very end, it's like, I think it's one of them realizes like, oh no, we're not gonna be able to push it down. And then immediately, the beginning of the next chapter, like, oh, it fell down. So it's just always with those cliffhangers, just teasing you. And so they push it down, the light comes out, and it starts burning everybody. One of the girls, I forget what her name was, but was particularly close to Amanda, was like, she's like, oh, thank you for like saving me, because you know, I guess being a ghost that feeds on blood is torturous, I mean, if you really think about the concept of, because they have to avoid sunlight, but they also have to avoid any kind of light. Like, so I'm not sure what they would do. They would be in their houses in complete darkness, or maybe they use black lights. I'm not sure how that works out. So once again, if you think too much about this, it starts crumbling and doesn't make a lot of sense. So they burn all of them, and then they rescue their parents, and then they take off back home and start packing, and then immediately after, the next scene is them already packed and about to leave, and Amanda is kind of like in the front yard, and she sees I think they're about to take off, right? And she goes back and then sees another realtor showing a family the house. And it's kind of left ambiguous whether or not it's the same guy that survived somehow. Compton Dolls. This is like kind of left ambiguous whether or not it's him. And then and the kind of funny thing is just like she had the chance to warn them to not take the house and not to live in this town, but she's like she rushes towards parents' car, jumps in, and they just peel out and leave, and that's kind of it. So it seems kind of like a dick move to just kind of like not potentially warn people about this. Whether or not there were some survivors, which would make sense. I mean, you see the sunlight start burning all the townspeople. Maybe a few of them escaped. They're not just gonna stand there and just die. So that might make sense. Overall, my thoughts on this. Yeah, you think too much about it. The plot kind of, there's some holes there if you think too much about the concept. I mean, as far as the first book, it's okay. There's, like I said before, there's two really awful parts of it, like kid's face melting and the killing of the dog. That's pretty horrible, but it falls in. It basically establishes tropes that will be later on, where like parents ignoring kids who obviously know what's going on. Josh is like the annoying kid, and then you always have the main character Amanda, who's like pretty straightforward, and it's an okay concept. Nothing too crazy or too silly yet. So it can be taken as fairly scary for like kids, and it's an okay story. You don't think too much about it. That's the end of the first episode. I know I apologize for the lighting. My lights just went out, so I'm just using a lamp that I had plugged in. So yeah, I apologize for that. Definitely, we're gonna get that issue resolved next time. The next story is going to be Stay Out of the Basement. And I'm still in the process of reading that. And I've already, the first two books here, I've been reading off Kindle, and I have bought actual physical copies, so look forward to that in the future, of me just having actually something physical I can show off and be like, hey, here's the cover, and I'll talk about that and that kind of thing. So, any comments? Let me know what you guys think about the first episode. I know it's a little bit rough, but it's to be expected. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. I'm gonna hopefully try to keep this down to a bi-weekly series, so an episode every 2 weeks. hopefully. All right, and bye.